crime examiners, and this is my ambiguity, Swedish professor, officer, applications of patent security, feature, by decision, legal from patent owners, risk, cost, delay, and overseas the courts of the to conclude the perception of indeterminacy over ventureship, shrewd investments, sharing trade secrets, word, for the federal district of Chicago, vegetable, venture, public domain, which in the public domain, reduce incentive prospects for investment, new working patent companies, that see trade secret patenting, AI assisted medical inventions are crucial in developing new drugs and vaccine raw homing, 24 patent applicated efficiencies, points, and also for today, and vegetable patent score, cost of the R&D, most ever, drug fruition, ever, suffer, cost for respect, result in the market, 10% of time, trust, cost for ability, reward, discover the journey, action for drug discovery, greater productivity, and clinical sustainability, human experience, accuracy, manufacturing, optimization, analyze, optimize schedules, R&D, AI design, prototype, generate issues, quickly reduce physical prototypes, and human development fails. Only AI can handle the complexity of pharmaceuticals for innovation. Robin, 19 human research explore potential drug molecules, discovery, offer opportunity, thinking, discovery, quicker AI, could change the cost of R&D, natural discovery, medical efficiency, economics, productivity, productivity, science, more big ideas are expensive, science becomes complex, and future pandemics are inevitable. Bond 23. Travel and evidence secure opportunities for pathogens, earlier pathogens only kill us, but opportunity for survival evidence systems with high probability of secure pathogens, civilization, collapse, food security, cause of failure, geoengineering, temperature, rapid assistance, critical structure, also double catastrophe, combat initial catastrophe, shifts to climate, amateurs, chemical, nuclear, and biotech extinction, Suzuki 21, crisis, proactive, aggressive action, using that systems, unemployed nuclear weapons, as well as chemical biotech, risk, increase, sharply, great accidents, opportunity for research, let's cover independently, trolls, or technique, financial technology patents, the bell, 21, financial institutions, patent, word off, future, right, tech, spur, brand, wars, the future, fintech, patents, Western leaders, battle, rights, including MPs, excessive litigation, slams, firm, innovation, the bell, 21, innovations for elections, fintech patents, commercialized products, attract investors, secure VC litigation, reasons for owners, women, still to MPs, specifically, AI patents are key, transfer, fintech, machine patents, pivotal role in AI, trajectory, and patents, false rights, false innovation, single probability, competitive edge, AI, catalyst, fintech, applications, catalysis, invested in forecast, AI, transit, risk, security, and AI solutions, given policy, patent, AI, driven fintech, knowledge, challenges, remaining traditional law centers around humans, there's a gray area that patent office is becoming stringent, fintech, innovation, backstops, water, insecurity, Boston Jones, 24, void charging to the commons, fintech, transit, access to create opportunities for cooperate waters.
See cross-ex who specified that works that are created with the assistance of AI could count as being patentable. We think that that justifies a legal claim where people who are using Gen AI material could say those things are also copyrightable by the same logic, i.e. I made a music disc associated by like some AI thing, and I could say that is copyrightable under the same legal claim of exclusivity, which means that people could copy a bunch of AI-generated stuff, which means the music industry would collapse.
Wait, I'm confused. How does copywriting... How does it spell to the music industry, I guess, is what I'm confused about.
One of the neutering is pretty good. It says that patents in AI, which is what you strengthen, could justify claims to copyrightable material. You say that legal argument doesn't exist now. You expand those rights, which means that,
Okay, but in the status quo, in order to get a copyright for something, you just have to use it. You don't have to file for a copyright. Once you create something, you have copyright.
We think that there are barriers to acquiring copyright in generative AI material
Which card makes that claim? Like, where is uniqueness for you can't copyright AI-generated things now? Because U.S. copyright law is you just have to create something and you have copyright.
No, we think that there are barriers, i.e. fair use claims and other doctrines that bar strong copyrightability.
Which evidence makes this claim?
Well, we think vanilla is a speculative claim that says that current AI-generated copyright doesn't exist now.
I'm asking for uniqueness, right? Like, I guess if we win that...
I think uniqueness... You have given us uniqueness to say patent law doesn't allow for AI now. We're using your uniqueness claim to generate uniqueness for our
But your stuff is about copyright law, and copyright law and patent law are different things.
Well, one of the neutering says that copyright law doesn't allow for that now because there's no legal argument for it.
We would disagree, but sure. Automation does that? The impact, is it just AGI?
Well, we think it would eventually lead to AI takeover. With or without AGI, we think the conflicts that would cause automation.
The Satala card seems to be entirely just about AGI. Where do you think it isolates any other?
We get new add-ons that are not about AGI, but as of the 1 and C. As of the 1 and C, sure. We think that, yes.
The babies?
What does the process counterclaim compete off of?
Arish?
It doesn't do the plan.
Yes.
Does it recommend it?
What is recommend? We don't know.
No, it would disapprove not doing it.
Yes.
the agent of the conception counterplan?
Agent, the conception counterplan. Congress.
Okay.
Okay. I'll mark that as 650.
Okay, the format got like destroyed when I pasted everything, but I'm just gonna send it. Okay, Jimmy, can I get this down?
Yeah, sure. Where should I just got the GBC? So, it's on one doc, right?
Oh, I sometimes get this formatting too. It sucks. I would open. I'm good for an order.
Okay, it's 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
The like turn on the third advantage, T pre-existing, cap K, conception counterplan, CRA counterplan, music disadd, babies disadd, automation disadd. Are we good?
Yeah.
You said CRA last after the conception counterplan.
Yeah. Computer skills. Okay. We're good?
Notice these defenses last two future predicts insurance extinction 1 global spread of civilization collapse on nuclear disruptions 2 triggers mutations chemicals in the nuclear tax community geoengineering conception that's bomb Suzuki deliberate bowel extinction voice 1 pandemic hypothetical for majority TB security and tech and plant process BWC validate only take 1 bowel to be accident to be catastrophic state sponsor attacks next there's no water war TB goes nuclear 1 does not seem new hospitals like South Asia and North America 2 imperials forward 4 Columbus in the past second 3 even if it doesn't cause war and assist other transitions more economics migration political instability in Africa and release of nuclear that's motion independently conceded desertification depletion of the low constitution wetlands vegetation and species diversity oversee otherwise civilizational collapse. Next, the neurojurisdictional Iran defense, Iran proliferation, and illegal nuclear pressure, cause retaliation, and Israel preemptively strikes Russia, China, US, and arms in the Middle East also prolific, and goes nuclear, and Israel triggers a Samson option, nuking the rest of the world. The only defense was and 1 and C5 was no sanctions. US sanctions are key to Iran development, which is the evidence I say extended in the 1 and C. Next, the second dimension 1 and C 1 and 2 influence is not doomed. 1 and C clause assumes Trump is an EU still influence and be revitalized. Now we also suffer inter-EU coordination, which they have not had any defense to. Next, 1 and C 3 consistency is possible. The app generates a standardized norm. Next, the EU defense, no defense usability, self-substitution, express cooperation over hostile migration, energy and pandemics as a forefront of transatlantic alignment. Also, forensic US digital governance, just Russia, China, cyber disinfo, internet, and nuclear attacks. That's Cybergan. They say Iran's launch list will continue, which kicks out the impact of the terminal impact of the side because they do not have an internal link to Huawei substitution on those either. Next, the third advantage, there's no drones. Even not assumed a new Trump weaponization. Drones cause nuclear missile. Russia, China, North Korea, all space since deployments are perceived as aggression. It also collapses armed control and undermines second strike, which means that we have larger internal link to the data right below. Also, algorithmic errors cause nuclear protect, which is symbol evidence, and criminal impact. Yes, it is specific. It outweighs and it punishes rogue actors that would otherwise cause a change from nuclear, chemical, wild wars, nano-environmental degradation. That's McKimmons. There's also no demons of back contamination. It just causes unleashed contagion and medical consumption biology. That it's not a double turn because our evidence is that we can maximize the upsides of the Torah law, and they have not read every heading, so we definitely get new answers. Next, I said this no link. The point is not create military integration, and we get new answers. Human training and loot definitely for the humans. Machine will harness precision with flexibility that avoids the bias use. Will always have the HITL, the overall coordination joint responsible use to all cases for actions executing nuclear weapons, human control, and maintain students and signal the importance of humans and other countries, some Russia, China, etc. All integrating and the most restricting stability said, but CN's 24 Gaza. Ukraine should the understanding of warfare. China train documents and sharp breaks and policies. Crime management stability causing a favor nuclear weapons. Russia has used so the US is inadequate. The US has returned multiple warheads in today's represents limited unpredictability. Russia, China have game changing systems. Next, China's revision sheet 24 China revision perceived as entrepreneurial challenges, democracy, military escalated or revisions realism. Emerging force background on Taiwan military metal and trade relations consistent access to Beijing. Let's support the model. The moments of thumbs 25. The wild supported the future attack R&D in the planet. AI field anxiety breakthroughs in AlphaGo and ChatGPT progress in the US and civil military repeatedly shot China. Suspensibility is motivated to display AI military capacity. AI has already been integrated in nuclear option and no Russia war. Extreme 23 likely to use nuclear astronomical goals not be considered seriously. Who knew to see leader team right? Number 2 set of weapons and nuclear wars attacked rhetoric. It was the intent and which leadership was desperate. First social leverage cut the card. Add leverage. Next T pre-existing 1. We meet the plan train this production by the data by saying AIs can be patented. 2. We meet plans to the vacuum was rejected. 3. Current version train production. It makes it easier to access minorities in database and record getting statute. Patent copyright framework for analysis of whether an action train IP production. First extended production make it easier for IP could be considered strengthened. Next the prefer 1 Afghan expansion is key to prevent after being wrecked by process cameras or pigs out of IP hours. The counter projects are absolutely applicability. Their arms ignores resolution so next and post word strengthened only we have intended to divide. It said most copyright to IP indexes 3 functional limits case of other words multiply clock price etc. Reasonability can be interest customs card and I am the GCB. I communicate to the panel in Morse code in the 1AC that they would read this argument by blinking and I'll predict that they will give it 2 and C. But if they cannot prove that they are GCB, then reject their argument based on falsifiable but still evaluate ours next capcade. 1 framework of only valid points are believed that until when the case have linked to the plans identifications and the combination will be only be derived from text and function key to class fairness permeable either overwhelms the links for suspicion and due to plan and involve IP all their instances to be extinction always the most harmful more bonds for capitalism does not cause extinction in the environment but further invasion necessary beliefs when the economies are 100% poverty reduction speed of the processing publishing and consumption and near no fixed prices instead of innovation deposits efficiency use of substitute cut the card of substitute and benefits also terminal OS 25 the AI integrated into the development lower emissions boost sustainability male facility monitoring existence of general biodiversity identify deforestation pollution status images safer by implementation monitoring optimization prevents pollution attack that's what decline the US investment in AI research concerning low capacity and investment promoting growth increase environment 5 the links not unique or double IP exists now all fails 1 subject to crackdowns opposition because the system and AI innovation cause extinction that's the case of crackdowns of degree 25 trouble pursue dissent use of lawful pressure to save repression persecute dissent to the US is brought part to crackdown recall changes act by activist organizations cut the card there and international arbitration fias ability issue laws for world peace carbon what coast clash and fairness sex conception to counterplan perfectly well it looks like follow on perfectly carbon can also be F1 certainty investors will not invest billions in a new system B that's home events and text law says AI but that's not a term of our insurance strike down M2 pound 30 PDLs clarify the guidance around AI patents testing Yaku only clarifying prevents the cost of systems or spending and laws here humans all understand over innovation AI dissolves the laws foundation unless people the vacuum system was untenable we need a patent update 3 and strong patent law to mitigate existential risk, and which is the case of 3 modeling. The Department destroys the key part of the patent act and does not model the patent agency Europe fractures. For European patent law and creates legal uncertainty, which is trials in this process. Arrest modeling. Against anything Trump is foreign policy, special contradiction about what the US intends to do. DTI the regions. The US is a down for the other winners include Russia, China. No one wants to know US policy destroy immediately political and outcomes. There's no partnership between regards to how policy conceptualizes the US as an strength force. They know the USPTO says that the current document that's confirmed by the federal circuit and of course that's war evidence. 5 liability only the courts can do stated that they which means that they can also the third advantage. They said that the actor was calling a 6 trolls, scamming the conception, and all trolls to free range to literally do anything that would obviously cause a larger interlink to the first advantage impacts and from to the compound that the bunch of future renovation. Look at possible future, consider possible future events from the compound, from the point compound over another issue, so the chills and other text and story compounds must be text a bunch of key after germanic sex condoms the issue. They moved the rest up into 2 seconds to lowers the introduction also 0, which purchasing changing decimal solve. Thinking from theory next to CRA compound print both looks like follow on from the compound and plus compounds are body suits haven't caused progress 1 uncertainty forcing the core they literally cannot force the court to rule and it will be uncertain on liability. Only a clear percentage signal of ownership is key to prevent trade secrets for investment. In addition, that's word evidence and industry leaders already reverse that's level evidence to modeling. Europe needs a clear model following the compound is not that and showing to that was right above 3 delay. The compound superstar impacts fast and now it's key across by the same no deficit from above and from the plane compound over another issue dealing with some of the text compound must be effective which key to African objectivity and germinus which is also the above from the compound the plan the intro was right above none benefit once is not key cannot spill over the apples is also works from checked by Congress the while Washington 24 and military comments congressional executive overpowers of Congress on past resolution in checking through policy issues anywhere not just president but on the trees now countries to conditions of a crisis commercial overwhelming but before and during and after conflicts music this global music industry will still occur which also the impact there's also no terminal impact there impact is less than nuclear war or any hostile so we can answer copyright loss destroyed 124 important right in BC overturn decision that had to provide not set by fiction copyright educational medium that needs to provide fiction decision highlights the uncertainty area of laws presence to such predictions linked to content and rather medium is to emphasize fiction not permanent if still over disproven 1001 invention to a point for a person node for a person human emotion AI be the rare rights and duties none applied by invention not because a person I mean to AI has legal object ability to invent AI can own and dispose like the software this is a successful and install impacts inevitable media disinformation pop 21 social media populism has great capacity to adapt to politics has benefited from Boston populism is to the issue providing information disorder fake news and also populism in the rest of the world which prevents the music generation from flourishing. The US is also racist so cannot model the ambiguity tips among walking into personhood LR 24 active for community which representative executive branch Congress and consider AI innovation publishing for final law to recognize AI should be considered in the the US redemption AI membership cascades into full percent extinction action of the impact force and if it's your jurisdiction then the which has no should and they have no spillover argument the baby said nice try this card is definitely about legal person the nearing card that they read on all 3 decided it's not a link because it's allowing AI to be the inventor is what triggered links so we get new answers to all 3 this has because it's about personhood we also get new answers and the plan it's also a terminal impact because it does the environment stuff which is right above automation this had new inventions a good drop from the YC and other countries still above AI so they can also terminal impact it's inevitable competition to monetary but that's a good mental position but a single time rather than the long term value small revenue over time of VC AI companies based on the revenue over time overlook the licensing value we do not need the same type of content differences not to US South America Australia granted inventorship don't for Australia decided AI can be independent on Friday for ideas after South America where the plans for recognizing data sets towards solves AI element well 24 the recognizing liability recognizing and then entails some of the AI subject to liability for T and damages preventing misalignment of AI holding companies and liability consent with the doctrine of rational precautions including oversight mitigating risk standards reduce litigation and predictable regime deter etc. Strat stab finishing this card. In Russia, war is not popular. Reports about lack of confidence and nukes wouldn't achieve Putin's battle into doctrine calls for the warhead and attack force are really the great factor in NATO retaliation. You've just lost your operational advantage. Putin understands the devastating effect on Russia. You can classify it to the music decide because the terminal impact was in NATO Russia.
Wait. 10. Sure. 9:36. Cool. I'll mark that. Good for cross. Okay.
Good.
Okay. I want to go back to advantage 1. Iran going nuclear and proliferating. How does the plan enable sanctions against Iran's nuclear systems?
Because it helps financial technology.
Like, so technology getting more dollars equals Iran stops.
So if you're asking about me to explain the fintech economic, the Herald evidence says that fintech quote offers availability and strength of economic measures. The developments can create
economic measures to stop war. Okay, great. I want to talk about the disease impact. In what scenario would geoengineering occur?
Well, geoengineering to some extent exists now. The argument is that a disease and would cause a massive pause in geoengineering things, which would cause an environmental catastrophe.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So, automation DA, how does tort law solve AL alignment?
Well, it solves the terminal impact. So we've actually read a torts advantage in the 1AC, and then we just read a card that says that giving AI liability is what it would allow to like combat tort law, which is like consistent with the rest of the 1AC. And we just read a card that says that solves AI alignment.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I want to go to conception. I want to talk about the certainty deficit. So businesses how does the plan resolve uncertainty in the status quo in a way that's distinct from the counterplan?
So the counterplan eliminates the conception requirement for AI-generated inventions. The argument for why this would be uncertain is because modifying a huge part of patent law would be uncertain for investors because now they don't know.
Wait, doesn't the plan modify a huge part of the patent law as well? What's the distinction?
Okay, so the distinction is that it does not change the conception requirement. And then
Wait, that sounds a bit circular. Both are large legal changes. Certain companies would be in shock.
but-
How does the plan stabilize that?
Right. So, but the biggest issue is because the source of uncertainty in the status quo is from PTO guidance. The counterplan does not do anything to change the fact that the PTO has already.
So PTO guidance is the biggest source of uncertainty. Can you explain that?
Yeah, our Iancu evidence and our Dornis evidence is that when the PTO rules against the plan and the Federal Circuit rules against the plan, that is the source of uncertainty. The counterplan tries to solve it in a different way by changing the conception requirement. That does not solve our internal link to certainty.
So it's a deficit to Congress acting essentially?
Like, not really. Like, the court's deficit was not about that.
Okay, that's
but
fine.
you have to, but it applies to some extent because we read a card that says that courts have already ruled against the plan, which is the say no card. If you do not change that, then no investor is going to want to invest in the system. Because
Okay.
they think that the US is going insane when the
that's
courts
great.
already ruled
Thank
against
you.
the plan.
I want to talk about this Trump argument. So Trump made a lot of countries uncertain. He shocked trade, destroyed foreign policy. What does the plan do to make EU confident that Trump will no longer tariff them?
So
and
just to make this clear, we have a scenario that is not reliant on US and EU working together. We said that we solve inter-EU fragmentation.
wait. European countries talk together. How does changing US law solve that?
Yeah, so our FOC evidence is that EU would model the plan, and that would resolve inter-fragmentation between EU states.
So modeling.
So they're able to harmonize
Trump
that. But the reason why we solve the US-EU alignment scenario is
Oh,
because
that's fine. Reason to reject.
okay, process, international object, private actor fee. There's more,
And condo, right?
but there's more.
Okay.
Wait, can we get that?
Uh,
Yes.
9:36 or 9:56 or yeah.
Wait,
Or actually, yeah, no, 36.
it was 36.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Question about add-on the music this ad. Is it just personhood bad?
I don't think I read that card.
Oh, or yeah, as a term. That's
I mean
fine.
the terminal card?
Okay. Wasn't read. That's fine.
You mean Yampolsky, right?
He did read the
He said
it
terminals.
spills
on the-
over into person.
Okay, that's fine.
Oh wait, I'm gonna take prep again because I forgot to remove analytics. 420. Okay, it's set. I can give an order in the meantime. Everyone's good for that.
Yes, sorry.
The CRA counterplan. T.
T what?
I think we made one T already. But T unauthorized.
Or no,
No.
key pre-existing.
Yeah. Okay, the one C enter pad unauthorized in it too. And then advantage 1, 2, 3. Or actually, conception after T, and then 1, 2, 3.
Did you save it?
Sorry,
Give us a second to save it.
please.
Are you all good?
Give us a second. Alright, yeah, we're good.
Okay. And great.
The counterpart solved the case. It has the relevant executive agency issue an interpretive ruling stating that its delegated authority does not allow and does not require the mandates of the plan. Congress will then use the CRA to pass a resolution of disapproval which strikes down the agency rule as erroneous. That combination results in a legal double negative that functionally affirms the agency both allowed and required to adopt the mandates of the plan. That's all because the agency will follow under the counterpart never fias the adoption of the plan's mandates themselves. That's the Freeman evidence. 2C1 is permitted whether it fails simultaneously. Simultaneous action means the plan mandates are interpreted as a binding rule by the relevant agent immediately, which short circuits the possibility of them enacting the following from the CRA double negative from the double negative. The first plan bans the plan. So, as the signal of the perm is incoherent and can't establish a precedent for approving agency in terms of the CRA. The counterplan alone is key to spill over the perm gives opponents within the agency an alibi for refusing to adopt the CRA double negative broadly. Freeman 22, an obstacle to intersecting the resistance CRA double negative required the stop to defeat from standard practice rule that protects the interagency waters down. Not much of them requires the state officials to be persuaded of value and legitimacy. Some require interpretations to endorse remove obstacles for rapid deployment. This must be controversially disagree with the CRA is a two-step eventually normalizing. The perm is legal
legally impossible. The plan requires binding agency rules adopting the mandate, so the counterplan is an interpretive rule saying the opposite. Mendelssohn tree. Agency uses policy statement only inclination not in the way binding agency implementation of the legislative rule will bind itself for a legislative will making deviation cost of relative high. Third is that by child agency action applying with the rule unavailable policy is against statements. The code is legal matter restricting the agency's latitude to take a different position. Later agency changes legal. To lose credit before the judge stop from taking a different position. Next is proved to the counterplan. It severs voting issue for obviating that ground and class. The counterplan's mandates never include the plan. The CRA resolution strikes down a non-binding agency interpretation that says the lack of authority to adopt the plan's mandate that instructs the agency to do the plan, but all substances is purely a result of downstream action, and the agency retains full discretion. Competitions about mandates on consequences. Otherwise, every counterplan is the leader since anything could result in the plan via the butterfly. In effect, firm severs topical requirements. These are independent of topic technicality in terms that are voting issue for jurisdiction of the plan. Violates one protection of IPR. IPR rights are given by law. According to 5. All should be nearly construed intellectual property conceals while promulgating rights given by the Constitution to all rights strictly be that must be legally binding standards. 2. Such pressure for legally binding standards that protect holders. To see the counterplan's mandates do not include legally binding action protecting the agency retains discretion to act or not. Hater 22. Congress transfers autonomy to agencies to shift the burden of fact solution of granting this discretion to the third when Congress involved the agency to make the first policy move for delegation on which the British applicants will not be responsible for extending responsibilities lack thereof. It's critical normative debates about such delegation and wonder whether Congress control it. D. The counterplan's statute is not self-executing. It requires that the actions use their own authority before it's enforceable. Galbraith 17. Statute in the immediately enforceable courts treaties on itself as executed for the provision that require the immediate action before enforcement actions of the written no legislative court even working with users to myself like this convert this outside provision that needs to be implemented by executive further administration like the appropriate actors keeping that ground and either interval allows absent for police circumvent themselves and never defending implementation that explodes limits infinite policy diffusion mechanisms. Theory proves the counterplan is good for debate. On the second resolution will stem a resolved working trade 64 resolved defined and established by law. B should imply the contractual must account Nelson 15 where should some argument there's not a compelled one must be recommending standards and problems that concept pattern policy interpretation of contact with the word should the language from the factor into defect immutable with the contractual must. Now the next is process counterplan is bad. The counterplan is good especially against new apps or against new cards. One next flex at the top is a huge concept substance mechanism app. The side by since good lit requires a corrective second testing. Competition proves arbitrary installation from a relevant controversy. Third topic education the score of the lit for no often say no certainty delay pressure bad no tons of lit balances it 5 reasonability conceded from T 6 reject the argument not the team. Now basically we can't force the court to rule that's irrelevant. The relevant agency will follow on and adopt the plans mandates to respond to the counterplan which is drop. The CR creates a unique congressional commitment to policy priority because it explicitly rejects an agency rule that attempts to go the other way and it creates a legal delegation of power with full force of law that tells the agency that they must adopt regulation consistent with the plan. Any deficit applies equally to them if the agency implementing the plan has an incentive to shirk or circumvent they'll do the exact same thing in response to the plan. Now they say or and encourage the cause by modeling. No, the counterplan creates the same certainty. It results in something that looks exactly like the plan. It includes agencies. Now they say delay deficit, no delay deficit. Any arguably about the time frame for normal means implementation, which applies equally to the plan. The counterplan has the agency and issue an interpretive rule immediately, and Congress immediately rejected following its lightning speed as for all our arcs. Elsewhere, the counterplan is much quicker than the plan. Average shortening the CR expected procedure of the CR resolution, like normal where the list of budget to enact as filibuster copy. But only CR is much quicker than regulatory process, but less risky in repealing the regulation. Promulgating as a replacement is not only lengthy process. They are subject to judicial review. CRA resolutions are not Congress to go to notice and comment. Now they say solvency is often the counterplan is a mechanism that is uniquely from judicial review. Adler don't even know. Then not only CRs and quicker than regulatory process that less work repealing breaks and promulgating replacements not only like the process that are also subject to judicial review. CRA resolution are not subject to judicial review, which answers the court strike down. Now they say perm other issues the perm fails one starting with specific narrow application of CRA double negative is vital to spill over. Premature CRA double negative some legislative movie. The reluctant to employ the opinion members of Congress believe that there's a legitimate demand. You use something that might be possible political strategy. Use the first as a simple application. There's an obvious statutory ambiguity. There's obvious statutory ambiguity. Say the double negative could be more used more broadly. Starting models about recommendation has established presence as foundation for more sort of uses in the future, but reject intrinsic terms. A ground function intrinsic terms estimate all negative generics, which is terrible on this topic. B logic textual competition glorifies semantics and teaches illogical decision making. C is arbitrary. The rest calls for debates over function. They textual competition is arbitrary standard equivalent to process counterplans, but no B they guarantee deficits because all counterplans must include mandate of the plan. Now they say perm do the counterplan of the plan. It's severance should is immediate. Settler 18 the word should is that was talking about on a later time on aspirations of down should is mandatory terms alternative next rex neg flex and it's intrinsic it adds an element of sequencing neither in the plan nor the counterplan and adds the word then. Now they say no net benefit it outweighs and drop the terminal judicial overreach and statutory interpretation drives economic statecraft to a halt. It blocks effective use of sanctions investment blocks and tools of weaponized independence that check and otherwise inevitable conflict among great powers. The only restraint on a return of full-on power competition between U.S. and Russia and China is the ability to channel conflict into economic competition. Otherwise small conflicts quickly guarantee escalate to nuclear war. That's the Meyer evidence. Now they say spillover. That was the only argument in the 2AC. So it's try or die. The counterpart mechanism spills over. Dems love it. Walker 23. The proposal to self that Congress is here to back reformer. They say it's critical mechanism for addressing problems. They make the agent for Congress to respond to judicial actions of others. Emphasis to here like to include any judicial assistance on impact sexual possible agency and interpretation of the help reduce regulatory effect of MQD and power Congress to quickly respond for Republicans that they believe government shouldn't address pressing policy problems. They say Trump is checked by the courts. That is our argument in the status quo. But the freedom to employ economic sanctions is critical. Now T. No GCB, we're not going for it. Jimmy is equally a GCB drop. He predicted Jordan would give a 2EC, so there's no differential. This is not an argument, conception. Not going for it, concede the permits to test the competition, reject the argument, not the team conduct. We get what we did. One, flexible counterplans are key. Hyperprotection is devilish, requiring multifaceted testing. Second, the logic conduct is an unpredictable non-resolution rule. That's bad. And then arbitrary. Third, innovation, fall back, encourage new arbitrary research. Defense, one, giving you adding more advocacy, speaking value until the strategic liability. Second, to be inevitable. T just has to be highlighting. Third, case rejected. One, deference to consensus. There's none. Two, force burns, cost of counterplans, and world peace plans. Third, cancel flex to 2C. Dictates the block. Advantage 1. No disease impact. Pandemics aren't existential. Mostly the ones that aren't globally transmissible nor statistically dangerous to all ages or genetic pools. The deadlier diseases, the easier to contain, the quicker it burns out. The add-on bioweapons fail. Pancreas 18 biological agents are such as terror, national sex, and devastation, prevalence, and contagion trade off the world. And these one attack which killed, which is good to compensate by administrative gene. I don't think we're close. Evidence to make it easier for public protection to identify and invent antibodies that overcome APR and develop vaccines and determine the availability and negativity. Inflate the odds. Their evidence concludes the probabilities less than 0.016%. Insert 1 EC bomb. Drop disease and cause war. Make states pessimistic by weakening human sources that and growth that underpin the military force. Desertification does not have a terminal. No water wars. No Asian water wars in Article 18. There's water wars in progress until the Asian sounds worse since 1970 cargo down. That's the pressure or nuclear weapons plus interdependence checks. No Iran. No. They don't solve trolls. Trolls use AI to create new portfolios that allow them to see further scale protections. Don't solve the trolls. Will still use AI to stick out claims to new inventions for something impeding competition. Israel. Yeah.
Okay, on terms of the counterplan, do we violate any of these in terms? Like, does the plan violate any of them?
If the plan is not one of those, then yeah, it would violate.
Okay, but competition is not top of Cali. Do you agree with that?
I mean, not necessarily.
Okay, sure. And then and how do you solve like the courts?
Yeah. So currently, courts have expansive power to, I guess, strike down agency action on the basis that it didn't receive.
Does the counterplan fiat the courts don't strike down?
I mean, the counterplan doesn't fiat the courts, but rather it creates the congressional authorization process necessary via the double negative that the CRA
but what if
permits.
courts want to strike it down? How do you counterplan stop that?
Well, we read evidence that it won't be struck down.
Why?
And also, your evidence says, the 1AC Ward evidence that you cited in the 2AC says that courts are not implementing inventorship right now. That is literally all it says. Obviously, that is the current law. So yes, they will not be implementing inventorship right now, but the counterplan would change that.
All right. You said the counterplan's shielded from judicial review. Can you explain how, like, the congressional limit thing, it can be shielded from judicial review?
Yeah. The Adler evidence says that the CRA process is literally not subject to
Rich, and then for do the counterplan, what are your warrants for why your standards are good?
Well,
Did
one,
you
we said, what?
Did you include any in the two?
We did.
Okay, what is it?
One, we said the counterplan does not fiat the plan, so butterfly effect competition is bad, or I guess in perm do the counterplan off of the butterfly effect, or off of counterplans that compete off of the butterfly effect is bad. We also said that AFs that aren't legally binding are impossible to beat. And it allows them to unpredictably circumvent themselves, not defend implementation, which explodes limits, etc.
I want to ask about counterplan solvency. So the first plank seems to have the PTO say, like, don't do the app, and then the second plank has Congress say, like, that's, we disapprove. Could you explain, like, does that mean PTO says, okay, I lied, let's do the app? Or which piece of evidence substantiates that the PTO will kind of repeal the first plank?
Yeah, the 1C card that we read, the Freeman evidence says that it would result in the PTO taking on what the CRA says because it's perceived as binding.
Which, where does it speak to the PTO? Like,
or, I mean, it says that relevant agencies would.
Like, yeah, it's about executive agencies, which is.
okay, but then it also doesn't take into account how the courts literally already said it's like, you can't do this.
Well, the court has said that because the PTO guidance prevents AI inventorship.
Is your argument that Congress overrules the courts? Like
No.
to create the legal authorization for the plan? Yes.
They
or no?
don't have to overrule the courts. I'm
Of course they do.
confused about the question.
All right. 1.5%, probably. 1, 2, 3, probably. Yeah. At the top.
Yeah.
I assume. Okay.
We'll take the second. Alright, 5 seconds. How much we have left?
6:45.
You guys stop taking crap.
Oh yeah, we stopped.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, yeah.
then we can.
Wait, Jimmy, what's the order again?
Yeah. So first, 1, 2, 3 at the top.
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
And then, okay. After that, the music DA, the automation DA, and then the strat stab thing on Advantage 3.
Get that one more time.
Yeah, music, automation, babies, strategic, stability.
And the case at stuff at the top.
Yeah,
Wait,
obviously.
music, automation, babies, and then chat stack on advantage.
Good?
Sorry, no. Wait, I need kind of babies. Alright, I'm good.
Okay.
Wait, Jimmy, we lied. We did not say the doc.
Oh, I thought it's called TOC.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
never mind. That's my speech.
Oh, 1 dash dash dash.
Okay.
Good?
You're on 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the top.
Yeah.
Panel? Taipei? Rish? Okay. Back on case, no wrong war. They're racking and we're share shocked to the 80. This Polak prolif was terminal in the 1AC and sanctions. It's solved by MQB better, wishing to turns case, emerging tag, no impact. The emerging text post alarms and gradual. It's overhyped and safeguard check against Josh. This Chester, no co-op impact you structurally doing only effect economic. It doesn't cooperate with other country. Trump obviously found Brando's a laundry list which doesn't have a correlation. Go to advantage 3. Torts, no uniqueness. Torts are high now. Courts don't say class now. 0 internally. Torts in the development is the key to use. Other tag plan. Also the solve plan to solve AI created inventions. No internally controls. Once the crowd is our international drone distribution. Domestic investorship doesn't affect those U.S. deployment violations. And Rebuttal Hicken was basically drop U.S. violations every single day. Drones, torture, prisons, large prisons in the world plan doesn't change those. Only aerial things which thumbs. Music.
For the
No.
the Martian stuff.
Yeah. No add-on 1, no internal car, merely says some industry are lobbying for it, which is the squirrel. So we get new answers 2, can see no spillover, so they can't get it. 3, in most cases about personhood, thumb by all their thumbers in the 2C, and no warrants. It's also turned by stress tab. Can see thumbers and no link, automation do the same thing. There's no straight turn offense, baby, same thing, strategically. Does that outweigh in terms of case 1 back to nuclear war is unthinkable because drones hold demand for international conflict escalations to counter that solves their impacts. Every nuclear country knows they cannot win because the secondary stability, the plan flip stack, causing centers and arms race, lash out and escalate. Ring defense here. We conceded their impacts in the 1AC, so no Russia wars non-start because they read the strat stab in about 4 hours, which is 1AC symbol of 2 turns case. Strat stab foster state independence because war is unthinkable. That's key to every international response to every impact. Flag this. Con 19. Strat stab terror versus independence confidence. Our interests such as response terror for living competition. Independence score strat stab and be maintained because they intermodally recover common interests. 2AC1. No link is the class, humans in the loop. It's a swing and a miss, even if humans are in control. Adversaries will perceive it as aggressive. It's about the 2022 presidential review, which is obviously outdated. LMs cause armistice, erases, immediate escalation limit, and tries to report limits to reality, try to blah blah, and LMs on effective experience and complexity dialogue. What's wrong with human gaming? And trust installation into arms race, and nukes in other countries don't have loot to use it. Now, set rule independent links. 1, signal. New developments are perceived as too fast, causing fears of unpredictability, fog of war, causing an arms race. That alone turns the case, causes unilateral Chinese and Russian developments in response without regulation. Drop 1 and C. Daniels. He says that commercial innovation about China to see curiosity process. It specifically says the upgrades financial and military innovations in AI, which gets its link. Second capability, AI prints second strike, attracting submarines, finding conventional silos, and enabling missile defense. 3, technical failure in the process of integrating and miscalculates, triggering early warning systems, and enabling adversarial hacking. That's Zala 4, trust. That's just with the animal confidence secretary, and military country escalation, yes, about human touch, empathy, and all this goes to there's going to be no mistakes making, and understand that like 2 minutes or so, a trust without belief for custody, and trust with that, every just making calculations in a fluctuation, Once the demonstration capacity issues provided as superior, the plan makes investments in AI economically viable, which is one I see folk inserted, re-highlighting the ritual said that our preempt towards solve is about alignment with human goals. It's our argument. It's alignment with the U.S. goals, emboldens China. It's an independent asterisk monitor to future checking about a large the fact that evolution space to check. Whenever the efficient negative signals use future check. Actually strike that. 2 and 3 other countries are awarded, but stability secure now on the brain no technology scalable. But under any nuclear system of accelerate balance increase mistrust and technical capability under my second strike that Zala frames a speed. Argues not that AI will never get integrated, but increasing speed linear increases the risk because it outpaces regulation. B uniqueness through link. But now are constrained by regulation or link evidence. The pursuit of arbitrary triggers worse effects ability that is covered from army leaders calling for modernization and it's about hypersonics, not AI, which is key. Armstrong not even was on IT. Armstrong not even new arms versus whereas then if you're arrested no previous escalation be do had to risk to look at the regularly non nuclear and that's likely how to get new active factors make a risk more likely dangerous US model working to the US is leading global efforts to build North Central AI 47 states and also the US is a global leader in ATG maintaining sharing ethical president for decades to practice the basis where common understanding up to well through publishing policy on AI autonomy. JC4 China revisionist is relevant even if they are they won't devour AI privacy which is their war they never achieve it versus to the war so it's worse concern restricting stability there's got to be pretty capability always says that which really gets to use this because Chinese dollars efficiency intelligence demonstrates our actually add application data because comes casting external governance industrial constraints natural Chinese development toner that's what these two organizations research not just behind US only through which Chinese shape persons and economic algo I don't know if that's afterwards to sell national items or future China sensitive items not also can to take 20 partnerships with Chinese sector and similar application sports companies because their approach but there was some more constraint toner now 50 American industry over estimation first there was estimation so even our fiction called sinus gap which restriction required less success shot for air since we are and it was swallowing behind China's strike a rule we never be on that one FU 134 sugar monsters this interview of our history essentially to track to the same dispersion for high school card not just about yes you there's response severity if you enforce mutually exclusive whose head is relevant and that's mutual truthfully just perception falling behind contribute the disability group of capability gap restoring equity rotations and news and against complicated purposes not with support of Mr. Armstrong Smith crush for safety loss so development revisionists they are still not revisionists at shock but they follow the corporation which China but become the next China but the China reflects American hegemony but a little bit of China is China now become you become China all change become American China over the next century China was global and China so from war 40 years ago few days in American last China regards but hegemony country China what if it after the solve any terminals to these staff trash app solves the impact which turns I said that. Yeah.
Okay, 6:45, right? 6:45.
Yeah, sure.
Do you have water? What's the order?
1, 2, 3. The cap K, the CRA counterplan, the music decide, and the stress type decide.
Wait, where was GC?
I think it was on
Just take the front.
T. Okay, that was the second.
No.
I'm adding T into the order.
Great.
It's above the music decide.
Alright, so list again. Cap, CRA, music,
No, it's T.
Cap K, CRA, music.
T is above music.
T is above music and then stress type.
Okay. Strat stab on Vantage 3 is at the very bottom. Okay.
Sounds good.
I'm fine.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Concede to defense not going for it. Same with the Water Wars, not going for Water Wars. Concede just as no terminal, but that's relevant. Next, random stuff. Concede defense, but they did not contest the fact that fintech is innovations key to self-sanctions results in that benefit. We don't have to win it internally. Yes, the plan does have trolls. They dropped the AI creates and mentioned in novel ways which can avoid trolls in the patenting process, which is a separate internal link. They've also trolls of specific scale production, which provides less innovation, which is the helmet evidence. They read no evidence to support their like laundryless claim, and so you should check it off your flow because our is better. Next, second mention, it was dropped in the European institutional power solicitation creates common solutions to water inequality, climate tech, risk test, war for evidence. They also dropped translated tech alignment tells Russia and China nuclear war AI, which prevents the estrus impact. They've also dropped the if you kick process. Then we obviously went on China because it outweighs the disset, and they do not have turn states to this alone. Next, the third image, concede towards high no offense. Capcade, they've dropped an add-on here to reset it. Administrative tells the terminal impact to the environment, and the environment causes teacher as per their warning statements. No new answers or cross applications. Next, the CRA campaign, the risk of the net is tiny. They have no spillover. Even if Dems like the plan, even some parts of Congress get the plan, they cannot guarantee future issues because Trump does not give a shit about it, or he would just apply regardless. They do not have a card that assumes it's the internal link without sanctions. They concede the app solves this. They did not contest at all. Fintech, we read a fintech internal link in the 1C, and we read internal link to solve that, i.e. new AI inventions, which is all conceded. I do not have to reinvent the wheel. We also concede no logic from them. So they have no internal impact to the counterplan because, which is also defensive strat, which, and we have defense on strat type that's going to apply here because it says that there's no great power war, but there's no internal impact to the counterplan because the no launcher list stuff obviously takes it out because they just asserted that it would cause great power conflict. Next, permanent the counterplan, we only have to win. Our interpretation is good and it is a possible interpretation instances of plan protection. IPR can be broad and non-binding as on 19 policymakers. Honestly, IPR is focused on broad policy environments. US IPR have a range of setting they trigger protections that enable games being non-binding. They have two arguments. One, no butterfly effect. If yes, Congress authorizes the plan, automatically make it plan flex because the plan is not mandated an agent and no legally binding counterplans are worse ruling term the argument because outside of no clear deficits on this topic and it's obviously like blacks. Next, per other issues, per the plan carbon over inventions is also something about the plan is useful on that benefit. No deficits is over distinct issue of inventions, which is still specific enough for issue there is zero unquantifiable deficits. They've constructed none of our deficits to our specific permutations, so it assumes that ourselves that we in your after the risk of the deficit is bigger to the risk of a deficit is bigger to the counterplan than the perm. Next, counterplan must be via text and function one objectivity functions are possible to determine which next predictability always because the guys have two background concede is immediate function only allows for no means delay and recommends uses like impact statements, commission, consult, etc., which are unbeatable and rec research and block recycle no deficits, new counterplans, net benefits, and infinite private and specific cards would outweigh deficits. 3 germanist meaning topic research always because since education is the only purple skill of debate, no offense. Because he controls net flex, they also get topic wise, they get the block literature controversy, drop functional limits and most like log in case all the office no new answers, no net ground germane net benefits, all this above, no perm giving your interpretation is limited to deleting words, solves grown perms because they can choose text in order, limitations are not ad hoc, it's normally understood as no scribble, and it's 2 C's 2 times Q, next no logic, we can still determine logic for ourselves, they ban the plan, so it competes if it's written, and but this justifies intrinsic because it proves that proving the topic true is the only predictable win condition, so it takes out the argument above, debate is also illogical, we maximize winning not being real world, no arbitrariness, 1, link turn function only is arbitrary not objective, that's above 2, norm solve text has been used for decades, ballot shape norms, the existence of a context present, it is predictable stasis to determine what is in the plan, 3, inevitable about less model debate for fairness, 4, links back all competition is confirmed, next, say no, the federal circuit PTO of course is president against the plan that's orders of word agency today is not responsible because that does not overcome the foe, the core any deficit outweighs the carbon makes plan law like fluid killing innovation, and uncertainty nukes investments and investors are risk averse that is shielded from judicial review. It is not true. They said it shielded from judicial review. That's not true. Even the cabinet makes it legal. The courts will strike down. They've already rejected the plan. Trump. So the court deny certain say that the plan forecloses the court review of a version of the U.S. Federal Circuit maintaining the court and president. The cabinet ensures strike down res judicata. They cannot reopen the case. So lucky 24 res judicata. Versus one judgment binding effect on subsequent prevents lower litigation claims here into conclusion and ensure finality legal disputes. It is a fundamental of the Patent Act as Morrison. They are legally obliged to strike down because they cannot reopen the case and have already made a ruling. Passion of the U.S. confirmed. Everything was straightforward from patent operating in the U.S. American jurisprudence to find the version constitutional over 2 years, 200 years remain embedded in the current system offers a negative on AI version. The terminal impact of all this was the stuff I did above. Next, key pre-existing conceived by next step. I can do the cabinet cannot be resurrected team because those words are on the plan. GCB will concede off on all possible but not going for music this time. They concede no neg fiat. Neg fiat is your jurisdiction and resolution has no sure this is the exact word still in use. And they cannot classify anything. This is not the argument. It's a framing argument. Next, test have no Russia impact. Nukes are regimes that there is no domestic support. Does not achieve goals of proven values. Don't left that Strickman. No transcase China Russia are hostile proven by revisions of China's revisions. Confirmed by internal documents. Military buildup and missile drills that she, which means that they will not collaborate. There are no transcase instability is inevitable. Connecting algorithms applied. Russia applied and nuclear UVs are China hypersonic supervisation for AI integration. US is only perceived as a response to the Russia. And there's also no link. The plan never integrates AI into nukes. It's for civilian technologies like vaccines and human in the loop solves the US. US doctrine will keep humans in charge, which ensures safe takeoffs to prevent accidental escalation. That step. There's no asterisk. They've dropped a card that says that towards the line AI, and we've conceded towards our high now. We tell the terminal impact next. Unique is the perception of US AI progress system. All the evidence goes out. All the evidence goes out. US national AI strategy investments in the chip tax export controls on China. And even ChatGPT has caused quote shock the Chinese strategic committee and quote led to proceed backward as saying the US believes in it. I'm in 325. The strategic implications of the AI nuclear command of Air Force and space force ambition AI as a tool. Everyone ICT create unprecedented momentum. DD conference of Russia and China. Investments in reach billions to 15 millions of military directors. Further integrate AI risk seeing the strategic advantage and tech across the establishment. Next, strategic stability is low now, which is a turns case. Global nuclear policy is massively uncertain and adversarial recent conflicts like collapsing arms control and trial policy and incentivized arms that's seen from 2024. The card answer was from 2019. Do you have hypersonic capabilities? I have been 25. The transcendent OD cables and Mach transcending the barriers that hinder this hypersonic flight reshape. Global hard message for that previously constrained by speed. Russia leverages the Wisconsin of APLA with the drones and the result of arbitration destabilizing strategic stability. They say it is not effective. Effectiveness is relevant takes up perception. Russia and China will never know exactly how strong the US military AI is, but a signal of US developing it alone and task force should cause it.
Cool.
For
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Okay. Everyone good for an order?
Yeah.
It's the CRA counterplan, the K, the music disad, and then, okay, I think that's it.
Alright.
Or then advantage 3.
Advantage what?
Advantage 3, the strats on.
Oh,
Okay.
No doc, right?
No dog. The one hour essentially conceded the net benefit, judicial oversight, statutory interpretation grants economic statecraft to halt. It halts effective use of sanctions, investment blocks, and tools of weaponized interdependence that check otherwise inevitable conflict among great powers. They dropped the scenario about China and Russia because economic sanctions are the only way to stop them. Yes, spillover. They've dropped Trump. The only one-hour warrant was Trump. They've dropped Trump as irrelevant because it doesn't have to approve the congressional resolution of disapproval. It's only Republicans and Democrats, with this 1 year does not have an argument about, but they've conceded the 1 Freeman evidence that says that the counterplan spurs broader use of those among Republicans and Democrats, which is the only thing that matters. No new 2 hour spin, that would be too new. Now they say the internal link is about sanctions, the AF solves the terminal. That's wrong. Our internal link subsumes theirs. First, you know that the counterplan solves the AF, so any verse that the AF does not solve the terminal, so the counterplan needs to vote next. Second, Trump does not have the authorization to engage in sanctions in the first place. The courts always strike it down because it doesn't have explicit congressional approval, which is the status quo. Only the counterplan can reverse the MQD and solve that. Yes, no longer this impact. Our evidence specifically has the scenario defense on StratStab. It's entirely irrelevant. This is a specific scenario to nuclear war. Will concede StratStab is low now, which means that there are still scenarios for nuclear war. Now, Lockerless was answered above. They say perm do the counterplan. It's a total non-starter. First, the conceded must be immediate. The counterplan does not do the plan immediately, which means that it competes clearly off of should. There was no debatability justification in the 2NC, so you ought to air neg on perm do the counterplan. But independently, they've dropped a debatability justification for why protection must be binding, and the counterplan conceded that the counterplan is not binding. Anything else allows apps to roll themselves back or read circumvention, but still get small advantages off of the mere act of trying to implement the plan, which decks all net ground because it makes all dissets non-unique and results in the status quo, but lets them get small, unpredictable advantages. Now, the AF does get very good deficits on this topic. They get things like how certain doctrines, things like torts, and the one you see, they're very good on this topic because IP is inherently a legal topic. Now, they say perm other issues. I'll do that here. The net ground outweighs the counterplans need to be functionally competitive. One process counterplans, they are necessary evil. This topic is unworkable or workable for the NAC. After can codify this quo and be topical with antitrust or Led Zeppelin style after make IP easier, slightly easier to acquire, religious ground from eligibility as clog dissets or infinite enforcement asks that circumvent offense. There's no core generic. We conceded to issue generics and compete, and that leaves the neg only with clog, which lacks a terminal impact or scenario about a patent court of politics. We get any cross applications because this wasn't applied to competition, which has less than a zero. Like no one cares about IPR. It's uncontroversial and too complicated influence policies. Air neg, the neg is reactionary to his lies, break new and races the margins, making their interpretation completely untenable. Internal net benefit solves it forces teams to read process-based advantages, serving as a functional limit which creates steps in the application process and necessitates large apps with robust advantages to cultivate real certainty deficits. Second is plan sophistry, textual competition, rewards of twos, plan writing, words like funding, not, etc., solve PTO, trade-off, politics, and clog, which kills fairness, fake plans, infinitely cause shiftiness, and clash in education, which turns their often third scramble firms. They can jumble up firms and let us abbreviate add-ons and fiat net benefits. They also drop partially intrinsic burdens so well into full-blown intrinsic line trees to add infinite words or mandates into the plan. Now they say after, and it's not irrelevant. If the net benefit is so contrived, then beat it on, do both. Theory checks, judges of drafts, and teams have to be asked to agency plain text and vacuum that puts the ball in their court. If they don't want process counter plans to compete, then they should simply remove words like should significantly and strengthen from the plain text. That works. The community adopts with voting for key interpretations that include bad counterplans that allow for a larger amount of votes. Do the counterplan does check the worst or year checks. Deficits are real this year. The entire topic is premised upon investors' reaction to market signals like patents. Now, they say better checks solve. There's tens of thousands of fonts and languages. That's an insanely large prep burden for every counterplan. Objectivity is a false flag operation. When they link their model includes functional competition, which triggers on objective competition evaluations. The second, that's offense. Vagueness from dictionary and language terms. Take the rest of the text and is a meaning ambiguous. Functional is objective. It's backed by evidence, which is easy to adjudicate. Solvency, advocacy, cross-text tags. Backed by evidence, make it easy to adjudicate and defining words in the counterplan solved. Now, the course strike down is 0. The 1AC word evidence says that course simply aren't following the plan right now, which is totally irrelevant. Also, the 1AC Freeman evidence says course only strike down actions in the status quo from the agency that they perceive according to the MQD that the agency didn't receive sufficient and explicit congressional authorization. The counterplan solves that use of the congressional resolution of disapproval, which is clear and explicit. Now, all of their cards say that the counterplan that cert was not granted, or that they, of course, haven't been implementing the standard now. But once the agency interprets it because of congressional authorization, then the court will allow them to, which solves all their offense. Conduct does not solve neck flex. That's not because the neck doesn't have any ground on this topic. Now, the K it's irrelevant if the counterplan solves the add-on. Now, yes, the music just had yes, neck fiat. They dropped every recent condo as good as key to neck flex, which is conceded that conditionality justifies neck fiat. No warning. The 1 AR for it anyway means that we get new answers, and the 2AC was so unclear, so gave us new answers and at least cross applications. There's no way you're about to end my career on a silly cheap shot. Now, framing issue, the 2AC was very fast and unclear, and the 1 AR had no warrant. Either you also conceded no neck fiat is a non-resolutional rule that denies negation, which outweighs on neck ground as per the counterplan. Now, advantage 3, not going for any of this stuff. The counterplan solves the entire AF.
Case doesn't solve because it's about executive.
Case doesn't solve because there's no authorization for the executive to implement things like sanctions right now because it's not authorized by Congress explicitly.
I need to go use the bathroom really quick.
Yeah.
A rush team.
Yeah,
the order?
Just put it on the counter.
So it's on me.
Okay. Everyone good?
Per due to planning the counterplan over inventions wildly, over only soft net benefit because it's over distinct policy. This means that we just have to win that it's theoretically legitimate for you to vote out by just kicking the counterplan. They did not have a deficit extended in the 2NR. At the top, the 2NR dropped that intrinsicness is good. They said on logic in the 2NC that textual competition is illogical, and we link turned that by saying that if logic is the most important thing, then intrinsicness is obviously good because it still proves the topic true and is a predictable win condition. This means even if they win all the debating on competition, you still vote app on perm regardless, because even if it's intrinsic, the intrinsicness is good. There's show no remorse for them since the 2NR didn't kick out of logic. Next, the counterplans must compete on both text and function. This means perms just have to disprove one. We're disproving that it is not, and the perm disproves that it's not both of them. The extend after on function only uniquely shreds affirmative win rates. Any permutation of consult, recommend, threaten, conditions, and impact statements, etc. become unbeatable and have no coherent deficits. There's no answer to the ICJ Simon statements, deeper review, consult, NATO, etc. Their defense is backwards. Deficits do not check. Deficits work now because the threat of competition forces teams to innovate counterplans that are arguably more competitive and link more to deficits. But under their model of debate, then teams wouldn't be incentivized to do that because the threat of competition does not exist. Their model creates a perverse incentive to just research infinitely new, incredibly certain versions of counterplans that I have described above with obscure net benefits. It tilts debates in favor of the negative since the app has no specific cards to answer the counterplans, and will explicitly concede that not both non-resolutional theory is bad on the negative fiat stuff and that shit is immediate. This means that they've greenlit a model debate where the most obscene consult counterplans compete and have no deficits and is theoretically legit because non-resolutional theory is bad. And that nobody will pull the trigger on it. Competition debating is good since it proves it's good since it's the only recourse to these counterplans. This flip side bias and new absence infinite prep is a negative word when the negative has infinite leeway to find new cheating counterplans to make the 1AC irrelevant. The 2NR also does no impact calculus, so don't do the work for them. They must outweigh neg ground. 2 words. 1. Unique offense only. Our offense is a unique reason why function only is bad. We can agree that the topic sucks and new apps are hard to debate without greenlighting swap. You cannot explain for the 2NR why process counterplans are uniquely key to solve all of their words. It's definitionally less important. It means functional limits massively mitigate their offense because the negative will always have things like critiques, clogs, prices, multi-lap, etc. in their arsenal, which guarantees that they always have something to say, whereas the app is a sitting duck to their model of debate. No uniqueness counterplans to generate uniqueness for disads that's wrong, and impact turns would obviously still apply to these apps, so they still get functional limits. Innovation bad is large swath of affirmative literature, which the negative can always impact turns, so there are definitely functional limits that exist. Politics also still exists too. Structurally, side bias goes affirmative. Every good team flips neg and yields. They've got the block literature controversy and judges being sympathetic to disad links and T-violation shows there's other ways to overcorrect other than that don't just delete the affirmative win rate. This takes out their neg being reactionary arguments. Now, no negative ground offense as well. Every argument above answers this, but they still get process counterplans like con, US code, the courts, etc. They just need external net benefits. They say scramble perms, that's wrong. The 2NR gives you examples or contextualization. It was all assertions that you can't vote on this. Also, the Plaid's option argument was not in the block, so strike it, but it's wrong. 1. Picks and solvency deficits deter any incentive to jam the Plaid. 2. Empirically disproven. The 2AC is massively time pressed. 3. We only allow deletion, which solves their offense. They drop that our internal link is limited to deleting words. Solves scramble perms since they choose text and order. Also answers full intrinsicness since we're limited to words in the counterplan. The counterplan doesn't check the process counterplans I listed above because we conceded from them that they get should competition, which makes do the counterplan unworkable. No context about your argument. This was new to an R strike it. They also do resolutional competition, which solves. They're not going for the objectivity argument, so it doesn't matter. Now, the deficit. Internal EU harmonization is key to solving extinction. Dropped in the 2NR don't have to do much work here. Just have to win a small risk of a deficit for it to outweigh the deficit. Strike down is big. The 2NR only indicts the ward evidence from the 1AC, but ignores the 1AR Trumsky evidence, which is not. It's not just about the Supreme Court denying cert to the Thaler case. It makes the argument that the Supreme Court refused to hear the Thaler case, which functionally makes the federal district court decision become binding precedent in all future cases. This is complicated but important. The Slonsky evidence furthers this claim by saying that because of res judicta, the Supreme Court cannot reopen the Thaler case after having denied it cert. Only fiating that the Supreme Court revisits the case solves, because otherwise the federal court decision that denied inventions created by AI the right to a patent is binding precedent that causes every agency action to be struck. 2NR line by line is all wrong. It's not about the MQD because the court strike down. It's not because of the MQD that the court strike inventorship down. It's because of the federal circuit court precedent that becomes binding. That's not above. This subsumes their agency interpretation argument because it means that even if agencies can reinterpret the stuff and can reinterpret their doctrine, litigants will sue. And when they try to sue them, and when they try to sue, they bring the patent to be brought to the courts, which is where all patent cases are litigated, and that patent would get invalidated because of the federal district court ruling. Now, any deficits outweigh the net benefit because we have some inroads to it. We said that AI being key is to solve effective sanctions. We conceded in the 2&R, so we have some mitigation to the net benefit, no mitigation to the deficit.
Debate.
Next card doc is
that's what we think. Apparently everything will be here. That was a mistake. Yeah, should not have said.
Congratulations to both teams for making it to the Octa finalists of the TOC. The decision is a 2-1 for the AF.
How much do you all want?
I'll hear all of it.
Alright. I will say I judged you a couple times this tournament and, super impressed by your debating and this debate. It's pretty close. I think a lot of these issues came down to the margins, and I think all of your speeches in this debate were fantastic, and, you should be very proud of how you did this tournament. I voted neg. I think the counterplan solved the case and the firm is illegitimate. I don't think the strike down deficit is real. It is an impact in this way in terms of certainty, and I think the only real warrant is this 20-hour card about the Thaler case superseding the counterclaim's precedence. I don't think that card really rises to the threshold that the court will literally strike down all future laws that constrain the precedent in that case. I don't even think it really says the court rejected the case on its merits. It just says it denied cert to this particular case. And I think at the very least, it's strike down deficit is lower than that benefit or risk given with the lack of the 2 hours that's on it. So I think the F needs to win the firm, and I kind of came down on the margins and just I didn't really have a reason that the concession of logic on intrinsicness comes before precedes all the other theoretical issues in this debate. The F kind of just says it's conceded, it's logical, a policymaker could adopt the firm and other issues. I don't know why that means that I should pretend to be a logical policymaker, or why that's best for debatability, or why that precedes all the other offense about background and neg ground. I think I just needed some more a couple more sentences on why this is a logical preconsideration to the AF and neg ground offense. I kind of came down on neg ground process counterplans are necessary on this topic, even if the AF says the neg has generics and other recourse, the neg says the generics are particularly bad on this topic. And the thing that I didn't really understand about the AF's argument about incentivizing a race to cheatier counterplans about competition as a recourse is the AF can still say it seems like certainty all the competition arguments you're making on firm due to counterplan as a basis for competition. So the neg says their model always locks in a functional difference between the AF and the counterplan, so there's always some offense. I'm not sure why the AF getting a scrambled firm or not means the neg will resort to consult or other cheaper counterplans in the future. It just seems to be a question of whether internal net benefits are good or bad, and the neg seems to be just slightly ahead on the debatability question there. And I also thought that the text and order thing didn't completely resolve their scrambled firms offense, but I'll stop there and let the other judges go.
I actually voted on the deficit. I think that the AF wins that the counterclaim doesn't result in a legal scheme that is not vulnerable to the possibility of the court striking down the end result of the counterclaim. I think that I agree that sort of the evidence on this question was pretty bad, but I think that the AF has a lot of spin that I don't think is really contextualized by the negative. So the AF's argument is that the courts have foreclosed the possibility of AI inventorship and sealed the case, and they read a card that said that they can't reopen it. Whether or not that's true, I don't know if it is, but the AF has evidence, and I don't think that part is responded in the seminar. But I think that the counterclaim results in maybe the USPTO reissuing an interpretation that allows for inventorship, but as the 1 year and 2 year explain, as those disputes go through the legal battle, I think ultimately that court ruling is still on the books, and whether which either causes that ruling from the counterplan to be struck down, or at the very least leads to confusion. And I think that the concession of the case means that confusion probably does not result in some transatlantic tech alignment, and I think that impact is pretty big. So I think ultimately the court ruling is still on the books, and which means that it's either the counterplan does not solve the AF, but neither the internal net benefit as well, because it doesn't restrain the courts from acting broadly. I think that even assuming that maybe the Dems and Republicans can still use the CRA to restrain the courts, I think that there is still a possibility that you still have an internal net benefit. I just think that case largely outweighs, because they still have some internal distinctions, and I think because case is broadly conceded, it outweighs the impact of the deficit.
Congrats, y'all. I just want to say you guys are awesome. Arish, you're an incredible 2N. You've been a pleasure to judge, and I'm so glad that I got to judge all of this tournament. debates you were incredibly clear, efficient, flowable, really smart, and really good strategies. So I just want to say you should be really proud of this debate. I actually voted on the permutation because I thought there was a larger risk of ground offense than net ground. Since should has to be immediate and non-resolutional, theory is bad. Basically anything goes, like consult, impact statements, recommend, signing statements, and there's no deficits since they result in the act and have unpredictable mechanisms and net benefits that are very predictable or impossible to research. I think that the main piece of defense you have that acts just have to write large advantages is answered by their argument that even if acts could be processes now, it's because competition is a check on the most abusive counterplans, but would it be in your model? And I'm just uncertain what those deficits are. I think they've generated a lot of defense to net ground and have like a pretty clear list of functional limits throughout the debate. Like DAs, like court clogs or politics, they can be made unique with uniqueness counterplan. Even if those DAs are not great, you still get process counterplans that steal most of the app, like OLRC and CON, but they just need external net benefits. So even if the DAs aren't great, the fact that you have those counterplan options means the debates would be relatively balanced. And I think impact turns and specifically innovation bad thanks to every app. I didn't think planned sophistry had an obvious impact, but was also beaten by no scramble terms, and their arguments that intrinsicness is logical since non-germane counterplans don't disprove the app. I was a little bit confused on the plan in a vacuum argument, but I think the 2AR argument that you get to compete on words in the resolution makes sense. And then I didn't think about the solvency deficit so much because if the intrinsic firm solves the net benefit, then there's like pretty clearly at least some risk of strike down that is a net benefit to implementation.
Yeah, that all makes sense. I don't have any questions.
Yeah, we don't have anything either. Thanks for judging.
Good debate.
Good debate.